Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com and this Pewter Report podcast. It is a primetime Wednesday evening edition of this show where we're going to recap everything that we saw from day two of mandatory Bucs mini camp, including some comments from Lavonte David about Devin White. Very excited to get into this episode. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my fellow colleague from pewterreport.com that's been out with us the last 2 days at minicamp. It is Bailey Adams. Bailey, how you doing, my man?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
I am pretty good. So before we get into the day that was for Bucs minicamp practice, a pretty eventful day once again. There was a little bit of breaking news since practice ended and we started this show tonight. A couple of more Bucs draft picks have been signed, sealed, and delivered. Jason Light and company getting the job done there. First round pick Kalijah Cansey is in the books, and so is third round edge rusher Yaya Diaby signed as well. Now, the interesting little tidbit for how these deals got done, of course, Jason Light and cap guru Mike Greenberg put their heads together and thought, what's the best way to go about this? And they restructured the contracts of two players, adding on a couple of void years. That was Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield Jr., which, funny enough, I feel like they're both going to get the next contract extension after Mike Evans. So the cool thing, though, is the Bucs are wasting no time at all. Every single draft pick, with the exception of Cody Mauch, has been signed. So don't have to worry about any, little contract disputes. They already got one with Devin White. But, you see from time to time with rookies, with certain languages, things of that nature. But no, everyone is on the books with the exception of Cody Mauch, and I have no doubts that will get done just from knowing Cody briefly. He's been on the show, of course. Seems like an easygoing guy, so it shouldn't be too many issues there. But Bailey, I find it interesting that they went to Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield Jr. because we're well aware about void years. I mean, it was the Tom Brady credit card that kind of got the Bucs into the situation this year. But that leads me to believe that because it was Tristan and Antoine, these guys are going to end up sticking around for a long, long time because of this little deal.
Yeah, and I think that was probably the case anyway, but it also kind of gives you an insight into maybe the framework of how they're going to get these deals done, and the ways they're gonna try to go about doing that. I think two slam dunk contract extension guys that deserve it and that should be getting those soon. And I know there was a lot of thought and speculation that a way to create some of this cap space for these rookies is to give Mike Evans his extension because, of course, he's in the last year of his contract. But I mean, I think that would still be coming this summer. I would be surprised if they went into this year with him being in a contract year. But definitely, good to see them go after those two guys for those void years and to get these guys signed. I know, like you said, Cody Mauch, I don't think there's any question whether or not he's going to sign. I think it's just about making more moves and making sure they can, fit his contract in on the books. And like you said, they've got one contract dispute. Everyone knows the rules.
Yeah.
They'll just stick with Devin White on that contract issue. But yeah, I think it's good to see they're not really wasting any time with any of these and making the necessary moves to get these guys on the books.
Right on. Appreciate everybody in the chats today. Shaggy saying, love that intro video. Glad you like it. We implemented it a couple of weeks, or about a week ago or so, and people seem to enjoy it. So glad you do. And Jeremy showing some love for Bailey says, Bailey, I love the hat with a couple of lightning bolts. We will talk about the Stanley Cup because the Panthers got absolutely annihilated, losing 9-3. So that was great to see. Yeah, go ahead.
Had to wear the hat to remind everyone that, the Lightning still run hockey in Florida, and that's just the way things are going to stay.
Absolutely. I want to get to this comment from Richard asking any details what their contracts are. Yes, we have a couple of details. Of course, the story about the contract signings and extension that was first reported by Greg Allman of Fox Sports. I want to say The Athletic. He is with Fox Sports now, but Josh Capo, our resident capologist, got into the details as well. So they're both 4-year deals. That's standard for every rookie. And then Kalijah Cansey, being the first round pick, has a 5th-year team option as well. For the salary cap numbers, should be for Cansey, it'll be around 2.6 million, and Diaby should be around just under $1 million for the overall cap hit. So those are the numbers there. In terms of the void years, let's see. Greg Allman said to create cap space to sign more draft picks, the Bucs restructure the contracts of Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield Jr., both in the 4th year of their rookie deals. They were due to make a combined $5.8 million in base salary. No extension, but frees up the space they needed. So shout out to void years once again. Bailey, let's get into it, though. I mean, we talked about it a lot on yesterday's podcast with all of the conversation about Devin White. And because we talked about it so much yesterday and Devin made his grand appearance, you thought maybe like, all right, we'll put this to bed after a little bit. But then we heard from Lavonte David today. And Levante is, as he spoke about, the longest tenured Buccaneer. He's the oldest Buccaneer on this team. He didn't say it out loud, but he was like, yeah, like I'm used to other veterans being here, so I'm not the oldest. Shout out Tom Brady playing as he finally did. But I think it was important to hear from Lavonte. And I thought his press conference struck a little bit of a different chord because you've seen a lot of Lavonte press conferences. He's been with the team for years. And Levante's a fantastic player. He's a future Bucs Ring of Honor member. His press conferences are usually forgettable. That's just nothing on him. He doesn't have to give us like any type of like great information. But with Devin White, Bailey, curious to get your thoughts. And we got a video as well, but just want to hear from you first. Everything that he had to say about Devin, I felt was very spot on. And he spoke from the heart too. And at the same time, kind of felt like he was once again cleaning up some of the messes that Devin White has kind of bestowed on himself.
Yeah, I was actually really, really intrigued to hear from Lavonte David about this whole situation. And I think probably a lot of people were, because for the longest time, and since this has become public that Devin White has requested a trade, I think there's been a lot of naturally people have been like, well, I wonder what Lavonte thinks. Because Lavante's kind of taken him under his wing since he got here, and Lavante's been a mentor to him. And just kind of curious, like maybe Lavonte David needs to get in his ear and kind of say, like, all right, listen, this is how things work. It's business, blah, blah, blah. And today we finally got to hear from Lavonte, and it kind of was like that. He said he kind of said that Devin's emotions got the best of him, and you can be a passionate player, a passionate person, but not to be someone who's too emotional, and basically let your emotions run you. And I think he kind of it seems to me that that's what Lavonte thinks this whole situation is born out of, based on what he said, I from what I'm remembering from earlier today, it's something that he kind of thinks it's resolved. Like he thinks that, he's happy to be here. He wants to be in Tampa, and it's just an emotional thing. You can see maybe that's one of those things where he, like you said, he's kind of cleaning up the mess. Because Devin's still out there posting some like kind of cryptic things on social media, and you're like, it doesn't seem like if he was truly, and I know we haven't gotten to talk to him or anything. If he was truly putting this all behind him, happy to be here, you would think there would be some kind of like finality to it, where he's like, all right, like I'm playing, like we're good to go. Just what we heard from Todd Bowles and Lavonte David was he'll be good to go for training camp. He's fine. He's here. He's not like he's here for mini camp. And I know Bowles said yesterday it was like a physical thing. It was like they want to see where he is physically because he hasn't been here for OTAs. I
don't believe that.
Other guys, I think there were some other guys that hadn't really been around too much for OTAs where they were out there practicing on mini camp. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it was very interesting to hear Lavonte kind of open up on it, because I kind of was expecting not much, like you mentioned, like Lavonte. Yeah. I don't think always gives away too much, and so I was thinking, he might kind of have like a casual, just like an answer and be like, that's kind of Devin's business. We've talked about it, blah blah blah. I can give him, advice as a veteran, but he did. He really kind of spoke openly about it. It was really, really interesting to hear from him.
And I think Devin, as you just pointed out, Bailey, still continuously going on social media and like commenting on things that will draw the ire of Bucs fans. That's kind of what I'm talking about with Levante cleaning up the messes. But let's just get to the video so that everyone can see it for yourself. Maybe I'll read some of the comments after because there's a little wind that's going on. We do this outside. But here's Levante talking about pretty much the number one topic for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers outside of the quarterback competition.
Yeah, I mean, it's just emotions got the best of him. I know Devin wants to be here. He wants to play here. So his emotions got the best of him. And he's here. He's here ready to work. He's not ready to go right now, but he'll be getting the separation for training camp. And, me, I talked to him throughout the whole process. Whatever that stuff was going on with him, I know the type of person Devin is. And so I know he's ready to get back out there and play football and be able to help us play. So, like I said, man, don't let your emotions get the best of you. Sometimes that can backfire against you. People use that against you. Everybody knows you're not that type of person. You're a very passionate person, not a very emotional person. So, show your passion. Just show that you love the game. You want to be here for the city of Tampa, for the organization of Tampa, and you love playing football with your teammates. He's a captain, he's a leader. A lot of guys look up to him. As a young football player, when he came in this game, fifth overall pick, made an immediate impact for us. We definitely need him out there. He knows that. And Devin, he's growing to year himself. For me to be here and watch him grow and watch him, improve year to year, it's definitely great to see. I don't know what went on with all that, whatever, but I just holler at him after the fact. I ain't talked to him about everything. I just talked to him, what can happen after that. I just told him how we feel about him, how I feel about him, and then him and his business side, they take care of me as a friend, as a teammate. I just try to control that part of it.
Yeah, so the bottom line, as Lavonte David mentioned, was just Devin letting the emotions getting the best of him. And then he talked about Devin being more of a passionate person than an emotional person. But I respectfully have to disagree with Lavonte there because everything Devin's been doing, requesting a trade before just holding out first, that's more emotional. Jumping all those steps just to request a trade right in the middle of the offseason when you don't really have much leverage after like the first round of free agency and everything. That's emotional. All the social media posts, that's more emotional than passion. Now, passion and emotion, I think, are very much in the same territory. But a couple of comments that Lavonte said, I'll skip to like the middle, second, and third parts of the video. Some of the advice that he gave to him, he said, like I said, don't let your emotions get the best of you. Sometimes that can backfire against you. I think that's pretty clear and obvious from what's going on. People can use that against you. Everybody knows you're not that type of person. You're a very passionate person, not a very emotional person. Show your passion. Show that you love the game, that you want to be here for the city of Tampa, for the organization of Tampa, and you love playing football with your teammates. He's a captain. He's a leader. A lot of guys look up to him. As a young football player, when he came into this game as the 5th overall pick, he made an immediate impact for us. We definitely need him out there. I agree with that. He knows that Devin, he's growing into a leader. For me to be here and watch him grow and watch him improve year to year, it's definitely great to see. Later, he goes on to say, because, Levante's went through it as well. That's something I did talk to him about. Sometimes you may feel disrespected, but can't let that get to you. And, Lavonte just had contract negotiations where he took a pay cut to come back this year. All you can do is control what you can control, and that's go out there and put the best tape out there on the field and let everything take care of itself. And then later on, he goes on to say he spoke to him after all the big news came out. He just hollered at him after the fact, didn't talk to him about everything, just talked to him about what can happen after this. And Lavonte told him how the whole team feels about him, how Lavonte personally feels about him, and what goes on the business side, what they can take care of. And then he says, me as a friend and as a teammate, I just try to control and handle that part of it. So, yeah, the part about cleaning up the messes, the whole prove that you want to play for the city of Tampa, play for the organization of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just honestly, I don't totally buy all of that. I don't think Devin, I'm sure Devin appreciates the fans. I'm sure he appreciates the community of Tampa. But at the end of the day, if the Philadelphia Eagles or the Denver Broncos or whoever, I'm just kind of throwing out teams. At the end of the day, if those teams want to sign Devin to one of the most lucrative contracts to an inside linebacker in NFL history, Devin White's going to put up the Antoine Winfield Jr. and say, peace, Tampa, I'm going over there. So that's the only part I kind of disagree with Levante on that front.
Yeah, and I know it's something that I think until Devin makes a statement like that or kind of just shows it even with his actions that he does want to be here for this year and want to be with the Bucs and be a leader for this team, that's what we're left to believe is that it doesn't really matter to him, that he's a captain of the Bucs. It doesn't really matter to him that he's with Tampa, that they've drafted him 5th overall, all this other stuff. It's just who's going to give him a big paycheck. And if that's what you're after, fair. I mean, you got to make your living. You've got to make your money while you can. But at the same time, like it just depends. You're going to have to also accept that people like fans are not going to be happy with that, and you might have some teammates who aren't going to be happy with that, and maybe kind of question you as a leader and question you as a captain. Because again, last year you voted a captain. This year, I'm really curious to see how the captain vote goes because I know the players are probably more so than the fans going to be, I guess not. I want to say accepting, but more sympathetic. Understanding and sympathetic because they go through it themselves. They want their own, like they have to look out for themselves and their families, so they're going to understand it. I'm just curious to see, if they're going to be kind of unhappy with the way he's gone about it and maybe not feel like he's one of the guys they want to represent them as a captain. It's really going to be interesting to see when that kind of is going to unfold, I believe, usually during training camp. So it's still a whiles away, but I'm really looking out for that because I'm curious about it.
Yeah, we won't really find out until late August, maybe like Labor Day weekend in September. And yeah, typically with the captain votes, like it's a nice, fun little story. We know it's going to be Mike. We know it's going to be Levante. Typically, it's the starting quarterback. We'll see how that rolls around this year as well. But yeah, this will be the most intriguing captain's vote in a couple of years for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers based on quarterback and the situation with Lavonte David as well. Let's get to a couple of comments from Pewter people. Meets McGee says he's too immature to be a team captain. He cannot take criticism. Emily Compas says, bottom line is 45 wanted to be an Eagle, so basically he doesn't want to be here. There's certainly truth to that. And lastly, Joel says, if other teams thought he was a game changer, they would have offered the Bucs a trade. They couldn't refuse. Yeah, that's the whole other situation in it, is that Devin, at least the trade was made public for a majority of the offseason, and teams even before the draft could have made a trade if they wanted to. But again, like financially wasn't the right time because everyone had just signed their free agents. I do wonder this all depends on how the Bucs do during the season, but maybe we get another Roquan Smith situation going into this year. It is very possible. While we have Lavonte David on the topic, there was another point of interest that Levante got into, and it's just one of those, man, time flies. I'm getting older. So the Creamsicles are returning this year. Lavonte David is the only player on this roster, and at this point, maybe in the league, that last wore the Creamsicle jerseys when the Bucs wore them in 2012. And it's going to be a little bit of an updated version of these ones.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, I got a little glimpse of them. They're not like the ones I wore in 2012 at all. So,
what's different about them?
I can't tell you.
Well, I get to see everything. You get to see the rings before they came out, too.
I can't tell y'all right now. But you should still be in for a surprise. They're really nice. I definitely like the way they look.
You're going to be in for a surprise. I like the way they look. I don't even know what changes could really be made. I mean, I know when we had Rashad White on, he was talking about like different fabrics and things like that. I'm sure obviously it'll be up to date with, the times and how the amount of sweat you have in a jersey and all that stuff is like so scientific. But I don't know, Bailey. I'm not sure like what else can really be changed, but I'm very excited to see what's going on.
I saw like some of the immediate reaction to that was that people were thinking they were going to be the white version of the Creamsicles, like the ones they wore back in the day. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. But outside of something drastic like that, I'm not really sure, unless it's just going to be kind of a modernized version of the Creamsicles. But yeah, Levante giving everybody a little teaser on middle of June. I don't know when we're going to get that reveal, but he's kind of got everybody kind of wanting that to hurry up and come out now.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. What were your thoughts on the fact that it's announced against the Detroit Lions?
I thought it was probably the right pick. I think I looked back I actually did an article for PewterReport.com back in, I think it was early April, maybe. Listing which, because we knew the opponents, we didn't know the schedule yet. So I was kind of saying, which games should they bring it out for? And I listed the top 5. I had the Lions as my number 2 and the Bears as my number 1 due to the whole NFC Central days and kind of a return to that. And, after the fact, the schedule comes out and the Bears are the home opener. So I kind of looking back now thinking, yeah, I mean, that was the right choice because you're not going to wear them for the home opener against the Bears, and the Lions are the next logical choice. So I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be a cool thing for the fans and even for the players, I think, to wear, these classic uniforms. And, it helps with the storyline as far as, the way the Bucs can market it as an old NFC Central showdown. So definitely looking forward to that one as one of the games I have circled for the season.
I like that there's some, symbolism behind it, a little bit of history. So yeah, I do think that is pretty cool to see. And Bucs fans will get a chance to watch them in the Creamsicle again. Rondé Barber actually was in the building today, so that's always cool to see as well. But let's talk a little bit about Bucs practice today, day 2. Bailey, you've been out there both days, and we talked about the Bucs offense, and I think there's one thing to watch tape of old Seattle Seahawks games. There's one to read articles about it as well. But for you personally, just seeing is believing, as they say. And for you, Bailey, just watching it over the last couple of days, what's your overall thoughts? And granted, we don't know the entire offense just yet, but watching this offense run by Dave Canales and Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, what's your overall impression of what they're putting out there as a product?
I think the big takeaway is, I mean, we knew this was kind of like you said, we've watched old tape and stuff like that, but just seeing the way the quarterbacks are moving, it's constant movement. They're moving and design rollouts and things like that. And I think it's a huge contrast to what we saw in the last offense, obviously, because it was more of a vertical passing thing and more no risk it, no biscuit, but also it was Tom Brady, and Tom Brady wasn't necessarily rolling out on any of his designed waggles or boots like that. But that's one thing that's really been sticking out. I think we've seen a lot of involvement with the running backs, both in terms of the running game. We haven't seen too much of that because we're not in pads or anything like that. We've seen some of the stuff. But as far as, catching passes and all that, it's a lot of quick throws. And I don't think we've seen too many downfield shots. We've seen just quick throws to, the running backs, quick outs to receivers. We've seen some patented Chris Godwin screens, but different
Chris Godwin screens.
Yeah, I don't want to alarm anyone with that, but some different, more creatively designed screens. And actually, what was kind of something that stuck out to me about something, I think it was Rashad that said it today. Rashad White mentioned that Mike Evans said something to the effect of, he hasn't been this open in a while.
Yeah, I picked up on that too.
That really kind of made me like, it's just an interesting little nugget that he dropped there from how Mike Evans is viewing this new offense, and makes people pretty excited to hear that, because if Mike Evans is happy and Mike Evans is getting open, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I've said this before. I think for Mike Evans, who's never been known as a yak guy, might have his career high in yards after the catch. I wonder if Mike's going to have a talking to with Rashad White after about, it's not a direct, but it's a little bit of a ricochet shot at Byron Leftwich and how the offense was run last year. But we did talk about seeing a lot of different mesh routes and quick passes, as you just talked about. And I think what's going to be great, almost better than anything else, is, Bailey, how many times last year were there, we know about the first down runs, but the fact that it would be 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10, second negative yards already, and you're just setting yourself up to automatically be ready to prepare for 3rd down, where now it feels like even if you get a short 4-yard completion, 2nd and 6, while doesn't look that crazy different from 2nd and 10, but that can make all the difference on 2nd down where you're not even getting to 3rd down now. And they're going to avoid
God forbid.
Yeah, God forbid. So they're going to get to those situations so much more, which when you talk about dink and dunk, that's not normally exciting. But when you talk about getting a 1st down on 2 plays instead of the stress of 3rd down, and all right, even if it's 2 yards, if you drop a pass, it's incomplete and you're punting, I think that's going to be super important for this offense. And if Mike Evans is getting wide open, that means Chris Godwin's going to get open too. And there's a lot of excitement there. Some of the other notes that kind of went on today at practice, Kyle Trask got the first snaps with the team. So obviously this is a quarterback competition, and Baker got the first reps yesterday. It was Kyle Trask that was under center when things got going. And, he struggled a lot yesterday. He didn't throw any interceptions today, so that's a positive. With that said, there was nothing that really blew me away from either quarterback today, and that goes to what you were saying, Bailey, about that you haven't seen any deep shots down the field. The first 2 days of practice, I don't think I've seen one deep shot. I can recall a couple to Trey Palmer in OTAs, but so far as yesterday and today, not too many of those deep shots. But I like the way that the offense at least held onto the football. What were some of your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think there really wasn't anything that stood out too much from either quarterback. I think Trask had a better day. Was a little more accurate, wasn't turning the ball over like he was on Tuesday. I think both quarterbacks did really well in 7-on-7s, but I mean, we were talking about there, and Scott was saying if you're a quarterback and you're not, looking good in 7-on-7s, that is a big knock on you. There's no pass rush, obviously, so some touchdowns in 7-on-7s, but not too much, not too many fireworks during the 11-on-11s or anything like that. But the other thing that I've seen, and this less so because actually no, we've seen it because we've seen we'll talk about defense in a little bit. We've seen some defensive guys, getting home and for would-be sacks, and they're not in pads, but I think what this offense is definitely going to help with too is the offensive line, especially in a state of transition. They're not having to hold their blocks nearly as long with these quick passes. The quarterbacks are getting the ball out, and I know Brady had one of the quickest releases, probably the quickest release in the game, but it's just a little bit different when you're getting the ball out as fast as they are, where it's almost in some cases impossible for a defender to get home on a sack because it's a snap and the ball is out. So I think that could help, especially as you kind of see a little bit more of it's just a different looking offensive line. I know everybody's kind of still adjusting into their new roles and kind of shaping up to see how that's going to go. But we've started to see early signs of that where it's you're not seeing, like we said, we're not seeing these long developing things down the field, and the offensive line is kind of benefiting from that as a result.
No question about it. Al Bundy says, it is a bit concerning to me that they have no deep passes in their playbook. You need to stretch the field to keep the defense honest. They will have plays that go down the field. I think we got to remember that it's June, it's mini camp. They're working on certain things specifically. What this offense is going to do is they're going to, obviously you want to run play action, and that brings safeties and linebackers in. They're going to bait you with the dink and dunk and the short plays and, the 5-yard passes. And then when you think that they're going to go for that 5-yard pass, they're going to take advantage of you getting greedy and wanting to stop that and take that away. That's when they're going to hit you deep. So you're not going to see a crazy amount of vertical plays like you saw with the Arians offense. But when you do see it, I think it's going to be super effective, and I think even way more effective than what you saw obviously last year, but at certain times with this Bucs offense overall. I'm glad you brought up the defense, Bailey, because the way that this offense versus defense is being ran, the coaches don't know what the opposite side is calling, which obviously is a great, training ground for Dave Canales, who's never called plays before. But man, the defense is coming from everywhere. They are blitzing Antoine Winfield Jr. nonstop. They are, lining up Yaya Diaby on the inside and moving one of the D tackles to the outside already, So this defense is absolutely flying everywhere. And I think specifically, man, it's going to help out that right side because Cody Mauch, a rookie, getting into this league, and Luke Gedeke with his struggles last year, you hit the nail on the head with just releasing the blocks much earlier. It's going to help these guys out a ton.
Yeah, and they talked a lot about that yesterday. I know we talked to both Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield, and they talked about how I think the pressure that Todd Bowles is sending on them in practice is helping, and I think it's going to help. Like you said, it's going to help Canales as a play caller because again, he's never called plays in games before, and this is giving him a chance to kind of see, go out there and see what he's seeing from the defense, and then call and adjust his play calling as he needs to. And I kind of wanted to go back to a quote from, because like you were mentioning, they're going to have these deep shots. They have these kind of the dink and dunk. You're going to lure you in, lure those guys up, and then throw it deep. It was Kyle Trask yesterday, I believe. Trying to find it. Let's see. He had a quote here about the style of the offense, and he said it would say it's unpredictable. He said you don't know what you're going to get. We could come at you a million different ways and then throw it over the top of your head. You just never know. He said the way that they're going to incorporate the weapons they have on offense into this system could make them very dangerous. And that's what he was kind of getting at was they can run these different plays out of the same formations and kind of do those short out routes, run plays and draw everybody up. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're going to throw the ball over your head. They're not going to be prepared for it. So I think that should be exciting because last year things did get predictable. And I know someone asked, is this, compared to last year, is it more unpredictable? And he was like, Trask was like, I don't really want to make comparisons like that, but it is that's just the reality of it is things got really predictable and really vanilla last year. And it should be music to everyone's ears that this is going to be a more unpredictable thing. You're not going to know what you're going to get. They can line up in these formations and then run a bunch of different plays. It's an exciting thing, an exciting time to kind of see how this offense comes together.
Unpredictability is all we've been asking for, and you are going to get it in droves this season, from running the ball differently to more creative screenplays. There will be the occasional screenplay, but I'm telling you now, without giving anything away, way more creative in the screen games and a way more effective passing game, as we talked about, with getting guys open, not just relying on your talent to beat the other team's talents. Because, one-on-one, Mike and Chris can beat almost anyone in the league. But when you double team Mike, as great as he is, it still makes it that difficult. By the way, I don't know why all of a sudden there is all this slander for Mike Evans. There was one tweet about Mike Evans overrated. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's underrated. We know the 1,000-yard record. Look at all the quarterbacks that he's done with it. Yes, the touchdowns dropped off last year, but consistently he always puts up monster touchdown numbers, and I think he's going to get back to that this year. Do you see it any way differently?
I really don't. I think he's been for most of his career an 8, a 10, a 12 touchdown guy. He had those couple years with Brady where I think he had 12 and maybe 14 one year. I think he's for in 9 seasons. I think he's at 81 now, and he's very quickly coming up on that 100 touchdown mark. And I think I would go as far as saying maybe within the next 2 years he might get to that 100-yard mark. He could probably get 19 in the next 2 years. Maybe it takes 2 years and a couple games, but no, I think the production is going to go back up. And yeah, I think some people are talking silly about him online, and it's an off-season thing where it's just it was one of those tweets where it was who's a player that you have never understood the hype on or something like that. Yeah. And it was a picture of Mike Evans, and I was like, first of all, he doesn't even get that much hype. I think Bucs fans probably more than anyone have seen him and they appreciate him, and they're the ones who will hype him up because they've actually seen him firsthand. Other people will just kind of read box scores and look at fantasy football numbers and be like, whatever. He might have a down game here and there, but as just in terms of consistency and production, there's not a lot of guys that have matched up to what he's done.
What's crazy and I'm pretty sure this was his account, so maybe it was a fake account. I didn't realize it, but Cameron Jordan, of all people, was defending Mike Evans, and all he does is hate on the Bucs because he's with the Saints. But that we're living in banana land when that's going on.
He threw a barb in there, to be fair to him, because he does kind of have a little bit of fun and poking at the Bucs. But he said, because someone said he gets locked down by Lattimore, and that's always a point of contention with Saints fans and Bucs fans. But Cam Jordan replied and was like, he goes off 15 out of 17 games a year. And he's talking about the 2 times the Bucs play them. That's what it is. But he said, 9 1,000-yard seasons. And then he referenced Marquise Colston, how he would never get his respect back in the day. So a little bit of love in between the division rivals, but I think he's just looking out for a guy who deserves the respect and isn't getting it as much as he should.
And Cam Jordan has how many Super Bowls?
What's the number before 1?
A donut? 0?
0, yeah.
And since he's entered the league, how many Super Bowls have the Bucs won?
Oh shoot, I just forgot. What's the number after 0? I think it's 1.
1. That's right. All right, let's hear Ryan Neal talking about Mike Evans.
And if they don't, you sleeping. I don't understand what else. I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? I mean, even we talk about it in practice. We're in red zone. We're like, hey, no, we taking 13 away. Like, we know the deal. You know what I mean? And everybody in the league knows the deal. So he definitely gets that respect around the league.
A quick video, but I played that because Ryan Neal did play around the league. He was with Atlanta. He was with the Seattle Seahawks. So, he's been in other locker rooms. People know how great Mike Evans is. So I thought it was important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when you look, because you know that in other locker rooms, yes, he does get that respect, and it's guys who played against him and they know how good he is. It just becomes a discourse online when it's just is silly talk at this point, where people are firing off their hot takes just because it's the middle of June and what else is there to do?
Right, exactly. Appreciate Meets McGee for the $5 super chat. They say, when Mike gets his extension, are we looking to sign another free agent? Or is it for emergency signing during the season? Good question. And, if you were to ask Todd Bowles or Jason Light this, they would say, we're leaving everything open. Everything's on the table. And I do think that's true. It depends on who's available. The Bucs might have to move around some contracts, kind of like what they just did to sign Kalijah Kancey and Yaya Diaby and, overall restructure some contracts. So I think the most notable thing you would see, and it's kind of like how they got Leonard Fournette a couple of seasons ago, is maybe not necessarily a big name, but it tends to be big names. Just a veteran player that gets cut from another team during training camp for whatever reason and becomes available. If there's a position of depth that the Bucs want to fill or address, a wide receiver very much may be one of them into the top 3. But I think that's kind of your best case scenario for that.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, that Cody Mauch is the one rookie that still hasn't been signed. They might have to create some more space for him. And maybe you do see a Mike Evans extension, create that space, and then create a little bit more space just for them to play around with and use as they need it as the season goes on. I don't know if there'd really be, I don't know. I mean, there's guys out there right now. There's plenty of guys that are unsigned. I know there's even some of the Bucs' own players from last year that, are unsigned, but it looks like they're kind of moving with the team they have right now. And if anything else becomes available, that's what you'll see them use that space for.
We'll talk further about mandatory minicamp, the second practice. But first, we got to talk about our favorite energy drink, Celsius Energy Drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Make Celsius your number one pick. They have so many flavors out there available, including the ones you see on the screen there. If you want to find out where to get one of your favorite flavors, whether it's Oasis 5, sparkling lemon lime, sparkling orange, I'm drinking strawberry lemonade a lot. I had orange pomegranate yesterday. Arctic Vibes, my personal favorite. If you want to know where to find one, go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and they will give you the most exact and accurate geographical location where to find one at your local Walmart, Target, 7-Eleven, convenience store, or your bodega. So make sure you hit up those bodegas, get your Celsius energy drink. And then when you love it so much and you want more, go to Amazon, get it in bulk, click the subscribe and save. I'd recommend getting the variety pack because variety is the spice of life. And when there's so many flavors, why limit yourself just to one? So like I said, go to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save, and you can have Celsius energy drinks sent to your house or apartment every week, month, quarterly, yearly, whenever you want it. Set it up. It's on your own terms when you want it at your place of residence. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. A couple other notes I wanted to get to from today's show, or from today's practice, and we'll talk about it on the show. Chris Godwin had a drop. That was very rare, but Mike Evans had a couple of drops yesterday as well. So they're just getting it out of the way now. No big deal. Defensively, I have a couple of notes. Carlton Davis had great coverage, but he dropped an interception. Stop me if you've heard that before. But sticking in the cornerback room, Zion McCollum had an excellent play down the field. Now, they were in zone coverage, so they had guys back, and he was kind of not exactly in the flats, but he's over on the left side of the field, and a receiver went all the way down the field, had a step ahead of the defense, and Zion used that 4.3 speed, sprinted, and got over there and knocked the ball away. It was a fantastic play, and I think that goes to what Todd Bowles was talking about with Zion. Just he's feeling more comfortable. He's in his second year. He understands a lot of things more, so that was great to see. Nick Leverett started at center today. Robert Hainsey was the starter yesterday. Leverett's getting that today. Just important to move some guys around, especially if they have to juggle the offensive line at any point. So that was cool. Kayvon Merriweather, safety, he had a blitz on a sack. And Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who was the poster boy of today's graphic, he had a sack as well. Bailey, I don't know if there's anything I missed or anything that you picked up on from today's practice.
On the JTS point, this was something Scott and I were talking about when we were out there. They did an interior, they had a stunt on the interior, and it opened up a lane for JTS to find and get the sack, or what would have been a sack. And what some of the Scott pointed out is that with how fast the interior guys are now, like the defensive line, especially the interior, like with Kalijah Kancey, with Logan Hall, they're faster now, and that's going to allow for more stunts and more opportunities to do those and execute those and get space for the edge rushers. So something that maybe JTS could benefit from as he looks to take that next step this year. We just saw a lot of pressure, a lot of would-be sacks. I know Vita Vea had one on a stunt of his own. And then let me see. I think Kalijah Kancey got back there one time. Pat O'Connor had one that may or may not have been a sack. He was in there. And I think David Moore, the last couple of days, from what I've seen, has kind of flashed a little bit. Of course, the former Seahawks receiver, and it's been interesting because he's been making some plays, and kind of, I know maybe a name that's flying under the radar, but I'm wondering if he has a strong camp, if we're going to see him kind of carve out a role for himself.
Yeah, I was talking about that yesterday too. He made a nice catch yesterday. He's in the mix. He's like back with the punt return guys too, just trying to prove that he can do a little bit of everything. He obviously comes from spending a little bit of time in the Canales type of offense. So and it's a long way to go. We'll see with training camp, but man, I do think if he doesn't crack this roster, he will at least be on the practice squad and will be super helpful to this team. But to get, in terms of just knowledge, and there's a lot of young guys in the room and everyone's learning that offense. To get back to JTS, like how can he take the next step? I'm curious to see how much George Edwards, his outside linebacker coach, will be able to help him. George Edwards is very high on JTS. For me, I think we know the end of the game. Like, he can get to the backfield. He led the team in quarterback hits last season. He's just got to finish the job. He's got to finish the last 5% of it. Whether or not he'll do it this year remains to be seen. But I think that's really the end-all be-all for JTS. Nothing more, nothing less. Yeah,
because we've talked, and I think the line has kind of commonly been he misses as many as he makes. But if he just, even the ones that he misses, even if he makes half of those, you see him as a 6, 7, 8 sack guy, because he gets back there, he pressures the quarterback. And I think sometimes he just is maybe a little too overzealous, playing a little too quickly, and playing too fast and trying to get past that quarterback, and they just kind of duck out of it. But I think it's something that we know he can get back there. It's just he's got to finish it. And like I just mentioned, it might be something where the new look defensive line can kind of open up some opportunities for these edge rushers, and maybe that's something where he kind of gets a helping hand there. But for the most part, it really is about just he's got to finish.
Without question. And speaking of changes to the defensive line or the D line in general, T says, I saw the warm-up video, and my God, is Logan Hall a mammoth? Did he get bigger? Unequivocally, yes, he did. This was something that we spoke about with D-line coach Casey Rogers about a month or two ago when we got to speak to the defensive line. He talked specifically about Logan Hall. And Logan Hall beforehand wasn't even 300. He's bulked up now. He's gotten over that 300 plateau. And I believe without losing any of the speed, which was kind of his calling cards, was like, hey, he's a defensive tackle that can rush the passer, and what comes with that is speed. And now he's putting on a little bit more of the power type of thing. I was definitely concerned about Logan Hall going in. I feel better now that he's bulked up a lot. And now you throw Kalijah Cansey into the mix, and I don't feel satisfied with the Bucs defensive line, and a lot of it's going to be seeing is believing, especially right now when they're in shorts and t-shirts. But Logan Hall could be the key from making this Bucs D line average to good to even great.
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think that was the big thing because we saw him a couple times last year early on in that Packers game. He had a good game in his rookie year, but it was always the thing where he needs to get bigger. He just needs to get bigger. It's just something that was going to come with time, and to see him now, yeah, he's taken those steps that he needed to take, and I'm really intrigued. I'm really interested to see, once we get to training camp and they get the pads on, what he can do and what kind of noise he can make there. And yeah, it's when you look at you can see the upside when you look at that starting defensive line with Vita Vea right there in the middle. Then you've got Logan Hall and Kalijah Cansey. If you look at those three, you can see what the Bucs see. You can see what Todd Bowles sees and what he can do with those guys. Whether or not it'll play out the way they want it to remains to be seen. But definitely kind of starting to see it shape up out there on the field, at least through the first couple of days of minicamp.
We had a couple of post-practice press conferences as well. Todd Bowles started it off. I think the biggest takeaway from his press conference is he was asked again about the quarterback competition and why do the competition when you can just give one of them the jobs and getting all of them the reps. And he essentially said, we're in June, they're in shorts and t-shirts. A competition needs to go longer than 3 days. That was the biggest thing. But then we talked to Ryan Neal. And for those that maybe aren't familiar with the personality of Ryan Neal, we had a press conference with him when he initially signed a couple of months ago. This dude is just awesome to talk to. He's super energetic. He, a lot of charisma, very personable, will get into everything. And you add him to the safety room that already has a great player in Antoine Winfield Jr. and then a lot of undrafted free agents. The first thing that stood out to me, Bailey, in terms of Ryan Neal, his size, man. He is gigantic compared to the rest of the safeties in that room, including Antoine Winfield Jr. But what was your impressions of him?
Yeah, I think from the very beginning, I liked when they signed him. I liked him as a player, and I thought, it was just a perfect opportunity for the Bucs to kind of swoop him up because he wasn't expected to be available. It was just the Seahawks made a trade, suddenly didn't have room for him. They had tendered an offer to him, then they took it back, and he became a free agent. And for the Bucs to swoop in and get a starting caliber and a starting safety to go along with Antoine Winfield Jr., I thought was great. But yeah, from that opening press conference he had back when he signed to hearing from him today, it's just I tweeted after his press conference. I said if he's not already, he's going to become a fan favorite just because it's hard to listen to him and not just be like drawn to him. Just the way he talks and the way he just has, like you said, he has this kind of charisma about him, and he gives really, really insightful answers to these questions and had a lot to say just about different things. And I know one thing that stood out was he was asked about Dave Canales because obviously both of them came from Seattle. Yeah. And he said that he and Dave Canales have a great relationship. And he said, he's an enthusiastic guy and mentioned how like his Dave Canales' daughter like loves him and he loves her and like they have like a great relationship. And which is interesting to kind of get that wrinkle because honestly, if I'm being honest, it wasn't even a connection I really thought of. It wasn't at the forefront of my mind.
Right, like third string safety and the quarterback's coach.
But they both find themselves in Tampa in more prominent roles, and it was interesting to hear him talk about that. And it's just he's a guy that is really interesting to hear from, and the more you hear from him, the more you're able to kind of see the way he sees the game and the way he's trying to kind of carve out a role for himself. And I think it can continue to go on and on, but the other thing he said about the undrafted free agents, because he's an undrafted free agent himself, and he was saying the undrafted free agent safeties, he's kind of like told them anything you need, come talk to me. Like I've been there, you're like me. Yeah, like I've been where you've been. So really cool to kind of see him. He's brand new to this team, but he's kind of already carving out that leadership role.
And I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful because, yes, he is a new guy to this team, but he's also a veteran dealing with a lot of playing with a lot of undrafted free agents that don't know anything about the NFL. And a lot of rookies don't. So he can come in and be a mentor and already find his place on this team because a lot of guys are already going to be looking up to him. So we have a couple of videos of Ryan Neal. This first one, he's just talking about playing in this attacking style of defense.
I mean, he does everything. There's not one thing you can just pin him on. And, being in the league, my 6th year coming in, I've been part of the defense where we kind of been one thing, but he's so multiple. And it's a challenge for the players, too, because you got to learn it. But it just gives you such an advantage because offenses in this league are just super smart. So you got to be able to change pitches up and change looks, and that's what he's known for. That's what he's great at. So that's what I love most about it. The young guys all the time, just being a safety, you got to. You know what I mean? The Mike is the quarterback in the defense, but so is the safety. You know what I mean? You got to be able to talk to everybody. You got to be able to put people in position. You got to be able to alert people if something's coming their way. And that just comes with studying the playbook and just knowing what's going on. So you kind of have to be a mastermind at the defense, and that's the challenge for the safety. So I love it, and it just makes you play a lot better because you have to know what's going on around you. So you take the rest of that camp, you go through it, make your mistakes, and it's cool. But you just got to learn it, know what everybody's doing, so you can quarterback the defense. I mean, I have, but this is way more aggressive than before. I mean, I come from systems where you do blitz sometimes, but this is a system where we do that. You know what I mean? We live it, and everybody does it. So that's the cool part about it. And like I said, you got to be smart. You got to know who's going, who's not going. Is it you? Is it someone else? So it's just it's cool because we're all in attack mode. Some defenses kind of play safe. You can't play safe in this league because, like I said, offenses are smart. They'll pick you apart and tear you up. But this defense is aggressive.
Apologize for the wind acting up there, but Mother Nature, that's what's going to do. And you mentioned that the undrafted free agents. I wanted to know more about that because he has this line in the video. He's like, yep, I came up from the mud too, which I feel like I'm going to try to use that in my vernacular. This person came up from the mud to make it. But, Kayvon Merriweather, Chris Isian, and Kedrick Whitehead, all undrafted free agents. Nolan Turner going into his 2nd year, also an undrafted free agent. Antoine Winfield Jr. is the only guy that's not an undrafted free agent in the safeties room.
And I told him from day one, I'm one of y'all. You know what I mean? I'm not an anomaly. I wasn't drafted. I had to get mine out the mud just like you. So even in my room across the team, I already had a talk with him, and I told him, whenever you need something, come holler at me. I know what the journey is like. I can give you the pointers, make right decisions in this league and make sure you staying on top of your stuff. So, I take that to heart when I get my undrafted. They got a special place for me.
Apologies, Bailey. I cut you off when I got to the video there.
Yeah, all I was going to say was, Antoine Winfield Jr. not only not an undrafted free agent, but a 2nd-round pick. So a little bit of a different mold. But yeah, it's just interesting to hear him talk to these guys and say, I've been where you've been. I've come up as an undrafted free agent. Come talk to me if you need anything. And that's really cool to hear him, take on that role.
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. And before we end the show, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about friend of the program, Rashad White, who also had a press conference after practice today. He talked a lot about the offense, little different things about it. The thing I was curious most is, and not just with Rashad, but a lot of the players, how much are they talking in between plays or in between sessions? Because everyone's learning this offense, and you see Baker pull guys aside. Kyle Trask has had those conversations as well. But Rashad kind of talks a little bit about everything. And then I have a question for you, Bailey, after this video is done.
Right now, what's expected of you?
I'm just out here having fun. It just feel good to be out here, be healthy. My teammates, just how it is, the atmosphere and the things, and just it brings out camaraderie to me. Trash talking, just having fun, just showing a different side of other guys as well. So I think that's huge. Out here, personality and things like that. That's good. The running back position and how it is, and where guys trying to go with it.
Yeah.
It's kind of great to be asked to do everything as well. Just having having guys behind you, I got Keyshawn and Sneak, Keyshawn and Chase and just things like that. And that's how it be, though. You always need some help and stuff like that. So it's going to be great. It's going to be well balanced.
What do you feel you have to do to reach the next level? What's your focus here in OTAs, mini camp?
My biggest focus is just, like you said, just getting better every day. Like you said, just getting my plays all down, just being able to go out there and play fast with confidence. At the end of the day, it's a team game. Obviously, I focus on me and do my job and that's all I can do. But honestly, it all comes from the work out there, just getting better footwork, getting bigger, faster, stronger, just learning in the meeting rooms and things like that, of how to do things better. Obviously, going against the defense, it gives you different looks, and they play things differently. So just going against all them different looks, it just keeps sharpening up your tools every day. I mean, so we kind of talk a lot. I mean, every guy in the room got a great is very comfortable with each other to come up and ask questions and things like that, which is what I like about the room, as well as coaches up the best he can and things like that. So, I mean, you just got guys like Chase, who came from West Coast offense and things like that, who ran it before. You just ask him what you do in certain looks. Obviously, he's been a great receiving back. Obviously, I can catch the ball well. I feel like I can run good routes as well. So, certain looks I get when we spread out a lot. I ask him, what can I do on this? What can I do on that? Things like that. Like, we've got that open communication. Like I said, Keyshawn asked me, what's you going to do in this release? If there's like things like that. So it's just great environment, great vibe.
So Bailey, my question to you, the Bucs have not had a 1,000-yard rusher in quite a while. I believe the last year was 2015 with Doug Martin. Will Rashad White reach 1,000 rushing yards this season?
I want to say yes, just because I like Rachaad White, and I think he's a very, very good player. I still am not ready to say yes. I'm going to say no. I think he's going to have a good season. I think the role that he's going to play in this offense is going to be a pretty significant one. But I think we're also going to see Chase Edmonds. I think we're going to see a little bit of Keyshawn Vaughn. And I don't think I'm bold enough to say we're going to see the Bucs rushing offense go from what it was last year to have a 1,000-yard rusher this year. So, unfortunately, I'm going to say no, but I hope I'm wrong.
I appreciate your honesty. It's very level-headed and reasonable answer. Rashad White was kind of asked about if he sets any goals for himself this year, and he started off by saying, I'm a team guy, but he does have something a little bit in the back of his head about that 1K.
Just kind of being naturally, I mean, so it sounds like cliche, just a team guy. I'm just here to really be honest, do my job. Of course, you have goals and you want things like that. Of course, I mean, every day you pay attention. I mean, 1,000-yard rusher, like 8 years or so, or however many since Doug and stuff like that. So I pay attention and read up and just see on all that type of stuff. So, of course, you want to eclipse that. But at the end of the day, if I'm just keep doing my job and doing what I'm supposed to do, all that will take care of itself.
Rashad White, a bit of a team historian, pointing out that I believe he said 8 years. The last year was 2015. So going into this year would be the 8th season unless Rashad gets it. I think he's going to hover right around it. Like, remember, Ronald Jones almost got it a couple of years ago. And then I can't remember if he got hurt or he got sick or something.
He got COVID, I think.
Yeah, I believe he got COVID, and that kind of stopped him. So, yeah, a lot of this depends on the new changes with the offense, the scheme. They are going to be run heavy, which I think helps. But to your point, just the rotation of running backs, what we've seen this year. Wayne Hankinson is predicting he's going to have 1,200 yards, which every Bucs fan would sign up for that. Richard says Rachaad White, 900 rush yards, 400 receiving yards. Yeah, I kind of think that you're going to see even more of an impact with Rashad in the receiving game than you will as a rusher. So he's going to have a ton of like all-purpose yards. George says Rashad will get a combined 1,500, 1,600 yards. Yeah, I could see something along those lines. And Al Bundy says, too many what ifs. Sean Tucker, Gedeke, Baker. I'm not sure if he will get 1,000. He looks like he is talented enough to be a 1,000-yard running back, but there are too many other factors. I can see 900 for sure. Yeah, that's another really good response, I think. It's just so many different variables, everything like that. We'll end with these last two comments. Richie P says, dude, if he knows how long it's been, then he wants to run the rock till the wheels fall off. Great comment there. And then Flash Gordon, taking a big swing, says, I'd predict 1,700 rushing yards.
I'll take it.
That would be quite the monumental feature for Rachaad White if he were able to do that. What's also been monumental is this show. It's been the greatest show of all time. We appreciate everybody watching it tonight and all the contributions from the Pewter people in the chat. Please make sure that you are liking and subscribing to this video, and please follow us on our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel, Pewter Report TV. We got a ton of content out already, more content to come. Please like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. We'll have one more show tomorrow night where we kind of wrap everything up. It's the Bucs minicamp final analysis, our last thoughts about what went on during the week of Bucs minicamp. But that's going to do it for us on tonight's show. For Bailey Adams, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow night for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Peace out.
Out.